minutes after. All right, hi recording. We are taking up our the second day of word problems, which are the rectangle and triangle questions. So we'll try to set everything up and then maybe just take up one or two, like all of them. So let's start with question number one. It says the width of a rectangle is 2 meters less than the length. The area of the rectangle is 48 meters squared. So I wonder if I draw it, will it work its magic? See, now it's not doing that. Okay, hold on, let me try this again. Yes. Okay. I'm like, you can't betray me another day. But now how do I move this? Okay, I can move it like that. No, I can't do that. What is happening? Pause recording. Resume recording. All right, so the width of a rectangle is 2 meters less than the length. So we know this is our length. We know, oh no, now I don't want that to happen. We know that is our length and we know that is our width. And the width is 2 meters less than the length. So what am I going to write for the width? It's just going to be W is equal to the length minus 2 meters. Okay, so for these questions, you always start with saying the L and the W, and then whatever information they give you, you write it as part of your equation. So that's that. The area is 48 meters squared. So now when I write my equation, you would, by the way, write a therefore statement, a let statement. And then it would be area is equal to length times width. The area is 48. The length is L and the width is L minus 2. Okay, and then from here, you would go ahead and finish solving this. You would get L squared minus 2L minus 48. And then when you solve this, it's just a simple trinomial. So it would just be L minus 8 and L plus 6. Now, when you go to solve this, you're going to notice that you get two different answers, and they would be L is equal to 8 and L is equal to negative 6. But of course, you can't have a negative answer. And so then obviously this question, like the length can't be negative 6. So the length would only be 8. And then when you substitute that back into the equation, you would find that the width is 6 meters. Okay, so then you would do a check and then you would do therefore statement. So things that I'm not including in my solution that you guys should make sure you include is make sure you have a let statement, make sure you have a check, and make sure you have a therefore statement. That was a pretty easy one. I don't think maybe you didn't have too much trouble with this one. Let's try question number 2. Find the dimensions of a rectangle with a width of 7 centimeters less than its length, but with an area of 98. Okay, so a very similar question to the one we just did. Yes, oh, I get so excited about that. So again, here is your length, here is your width, and it says the width is 7 centimeters less than its length. So this is just going to be L minus 7. And then to set this up, it's going to be area is equal to length times width, which is going to be 98 is equal to L times L minus 7. And then move everything to one side. So L squared minus 7L minus 98. And again, if you have your calculator, just find two numbers that are 7 apart, and you basically will end up getting L plus 7, L minus 14. So your two answers are going to be length is negative 7 and length is 14. The negative 7 won't count, so you can just cross that one out. And then when you put this back in, it's going to be 7. Okay, and then don't forget your therefore statement, your let statement, and your check. Question number 3 says a rectangle is 3 centimeters longer than it is wide. The diagonal is 15 centimeters. Okay, so this looks a little bit different than the questions we've been doing because they now have something called the diagonal. And if you didn't know this, The diagonal is actually a line that crosses or cuts across the rectangle. Okay, so for this question, again, I'm going to be labeling my length here and my width here. A rectangle is 3 centimeters longer than it is wide. So if the width is W, that means the length is going to be W plus 3. And then the diagonal is 15 centimeters. So this number over here is going to be 15. So really what this question is, even though it is a rectangle question, it's more of a triangle question. Like if I move this W over to this side, then really all I have is a triangle, and I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve this. So this is sort of like a rectangle question, but it's disguised as a triangle question. And the reason why is if they give you an area, then you could have figured it out like the previous two questions, but they don't give you an area. So we're going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is just going to be a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So really that's going to be w squared plus w plus 3 squared is equal to 15 squared. Expand, simplify, and you will end up getting 2w squared plus 6w minus 216 is equal to 0. You should be able to factor out the 2, so it's going to be w squared plus 3w minus 108 is equal to 0. And then this is a simple trinomial. So again, use your calculator, find numbers that are 3 apart, and multiply to 108. So it'll be w minus 9 and w plus 12. So your answer is w is equal to 9 centimeters or w is equal to negative 12. Hey, can you open the door for her because she's crying? This will not work. This will work. And so when you put this back in, this will be 12 centimeters. All right. The length of a rectangle is 6 meters longer than the width. Okay, this is exactly like question 1 and 2. I'm not spending too much time on this. This is length. This is width. No, I don't want that. Length. This is width. 6 meters longer than the width. So this is just going to be w plus 6. And then you're just going to go area is equal to length times width, which is 91 is equal to w plus 6 times w. And then when we simplify this, it's going to be w squared plus 6w minus 91. And you factor it out, and you're going to get negative 17 plus 13. W is equal to 7. W is equal to negative 13. This doesn't work. This does. And the length is just going to be 13. It seems like you guys were probably okay with the rectangle questions. I think maybe the triangle questions gave you a little bit more trouble. Yoga was fun. That was the only part of phys that I did last year. I feel like yoga would be so relaxing. And then we would do like, you know, that pose at the end where you just lie there and you take a nap. That'd be like an hour of my class. All right, triangle. What's it called? It's called, oh gosh, something with an S. If someone knows that pose, that yoga pose where you just lie there, let me know. I can't remember. All right, a right angle triangle has a perimeter of 36 units. If the hypotenuse is 15 units, how long are the other two sides? Yay. Okay, so perimeter means we're going to be adding up all of the side lengths. So we know that. We know the hypotenuse is 15 units. So that's fine. And then it'll give you any other information about the other side lengths. So what are we going to have to do? We're just going to have to call one of them X and we're going to have to call the other one Y. Okay, then you would write your let statement, let X represent one side length, let Y represent another side length. And then, like I said, this is for every triangle question, we're really going to have to do the Pythagorean theorem. However, that doesn't give us enough information. Like if we did the Pythagorean theorem, we would just get x squared plus y squared is equal to 15. So that doesn't help. However, they give you one other piece of information, and that is we have a perimeter of 36 units. Okay, so here's how I would do this question. My first equation would be the first side length plus the second side length plus 15 is equal to 36. And then my second equation would be x squared plus y squared is equal to 15 squared. Now, whenever we're solving these questions, like if you go back to here, whenever you're solving them, you notice that you only have one letter in your solution, right? L or W or L or W. And the problem with this question is we have two different letters. So the way we're going to solve this is we're going to actually take this equation and we're going to rearrange it for either X or Y. It doesn't matter which one. Everyone can do something different. You'll still get the right answer. I'm going to go ahead and rearrange it for Y. Okay, so firstly, I need to just move this over because I'm going to run out of space. Okay, then I come back here and I'm going to rearrange it for Y. So Y is going to be equal to 36 minus 15 minus X. And then what is this? It's 21 minus X. Now I'm going to take this little equation and substitute it into this equation. So when I rewrite this, it's going to be x squared plus 21 minus x squared is equal to 15 squared. Solving this is going to give you really, really massive numbers because 21 is a big number. So just be mindful of that, but go, like, you can try it and rearrange it and expand and see what you get. When you do expand it, you should end up getting 2x squared minus 42x plus 216 is equal to 0. And then this will just be plus 108 is equal to 0. And then when you factor this out, and you can also do a little bit of like cheating action where you just look at the answer, and if the answer is whole units, then you know you can factor it. You can factor it such that you're not getting decimals. There is one question in this that I just focused your attention on yesterday, where I said you'd probably have to use the quadratic formula. How would you know what to do on a test? Well, I'm going to probably make it a little bit easier, and I'll tell you that everything I give you on the test is going to be factorable. So you should be able to get nice whole numbers on an assessment. But if you're using your textbook, or if you're, doing questions on this, you may not get nice numbers. Now for this, you get x is equal to 12 and x is equal to 9, which is weird, right? Because we have two x's, both of them work. When you put it back into this equation of y is equal to 21 minus x, look what happens. You actually end up getting the exact same thing. So here you're going to get y is equal to 9, and here you're going to get y is equal to 12. So it turns out that 12 and 9 are both valid answers. And it doesn't matter which one goes where, they both will end up working. Recording. So I just answered a couple of questions that I want to put in recording. Number one, like I said, question number one, I don't have the full solution. See this step from here to here, I've skipped a lot of steps. You would have to expand and simplify, collect like terms, etc. And number two, if you went ahead and solved for X for this question, your solution would look different, but you should end up getting the same answer. Okay, and if you use the quadratic formula, also totally fine. You will also get the same answer. All right, we have decided that question number 2 is going to be done as a full solution. So I hope I have enough room here. I'm going to try to kind of squish it in and see if I can do it. So it says the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle is 26 centimeters. The sum of the other two sides is 34. Find the lengths of the other two sides of the triangle. I guess I think Shweta asked, like, how would you know when to do this? Another strategy I would use is for these triangle questions, because they don't give you the area, like for the rectangle questions, they always just gave you an area. For these ones, you almost have to come up with two different equations and then use some sort of substitution to solve the question. And like I said, if you do enough of these questions, like even if you do the 4 that we're doing today, you will start to see that as a trend. All right, so here I have a triangle, and here I'm going to be writing 26. Do my numbers look like shapes? Okay, so I have 26 centimeters as my hypotenuse. The sum of the other two sides is 34, but we don't know what those sides are. So just like before, I'm going to call one of them X and I'm going to call the other one Y. I need a let statement, which is going to be let X represent one side and Y represent the other side. Okay, let X represent one side and Y represent the other side. The sum of the other two sides is 34. So that's one piece of information that we're going to use to solve this question. We're going to be taking our side length X plus our side length Y, and we're going to let that equal to 34. Now you can rearrange it for X or Y, it doesn't matter. I kind of have this habit of always rearranging for Y. So I'm going to rearrange this equation so that it's Y is equal to 34 minus X. Now, if you wanted, you could write this as part of your triangle. So Y is actually equal to 34 minus X. Because I remember we kind of did that for our rectangle questions. Again, up here, if you wanted, you could rewrite this as Y is equal to 21 minus X. Okay, so now we have our triangle. We have a little bit of information. I'm going to go ahead and use the Pythagorean theorem and expand this. So one side length plus the other side length squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So this is going to be x squared plus 34 minus x squared is equal to 26 squared. The question asks, for triangles, don't the side lengths always have to be labeled A and B? I guess you could label them anything you want. Yeah, you could label them A and B. I went with just like before, I kind of go over to the side when I'm doing any sort of extra work because I don't want it to get messy. So 34 minus x squared is the same as 34 minus x times 34 minus x. I'm going to use my calculator to figure out what 34 times 34 is. It's 1,156 minus 34x minus 34x plus x squared. Okay, so hopefully you guys understood what I did there. I just foiled it so that I have my expanded expression there. Now I'm going to come back to my original question and I'm going to write that in. So it's going to be x squared plus 1,156 minus 68x plus x squared, and it's going to equal to 676. I'll go ahead and move everything over to one side and start to simplify. So x squared and x squared is 2x squared minus 68x, and then 1,156 minus 676 is just going to be plus 480 is equal to 0. You're going to notice none of my stuff is lining up. Which is just poor math. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and factor out the 2, and I'm going to get x squared minus 34x plus 240 is equal to 0. My gosh, why is nothing lining up? Super annoying. Where did I get the 2x squared from? See how I have an x squared here and an x squared here? I just added those together to get 2x squared. Okay, so for me, again, like I said, it's all dependent on how you're looking at it. When I notice any number with a 0, I love it because I know one of the factors are definitely 24 times 10, right? 24 times 10 is very clearly 240. I also know that if I were to subtract both of these, minus 24 minus 10, it ends up giving me negative 34. So to factor this question, without using quadratic formula. In this case, I found it to be quite easy. Again, if you don't see that, I completely understand. Like sometimes it's not so visible. If you were to use the quadratic formula, you definitely can. Just make sure you're really careful because there are a lot of sources of error when you're using the quadratic formula. Okay, so this ends up being x minus 20, what did I just say? 24 and 10, right? X minus 24 and then x minus 10 is equal to 0. So our answer is 24 and x is equal to 10. Now, how do both these work? Well, when I put these x's into this equation over here, I'm going to get 34 minus 24 is y is equal to 10. And 34 minus 10 is 24. So it seems like both of them work, but we need to do a check to double check. So I'm just going to draw out my checking triangle here. Okay, so it doesn't matter which solution you pick. Let's say I just put one of the side lengths is 24, the other one is 10, and the hypotenuse ends up being, what was it? 26, right? So there are two, your thing is lagging a lot. Yeah, you know what? I can kind of see it too. It might just be an internet thing. Let's just hope it settles down. Okay, so there are two different checks that I should do. The first one is, do my two side lengths that are not my hypotenuse add up to 34? Well, 24 plus 10 is definitely 34, so that ends up working out. For the next one, the Pythagorean theorem, right? So is 24 squared plus 10 squared, does that equal 26 squared? So I'm going to use my calculator. 24 times 24 plus 100 is going to be 676. And 26 times 26 is 676. So my check works out. The answer has to be 24 and 10. And then to finish off this question, which is kind of all over the place, I'm going to have to fix it later. It is our therefore statement. So therefore, the question was find the lengths of the other two sides. The side lengths are, and I always write my units at the end, 24 centimeters and 10 centimeters. Let me zoom in out a little bit so you guys can see the full solution. Hold on. Resume recording. Okay, so question number 3 says the hypotenuse of a right triangle is 6 centimeters and one side is 2 centimeters longer than the other, then the other. Find the length of each side. I feel like, did we do this question already? Because I remember seeing that exact mistake somewhere. Yeah? Can you get her? It's probably that string she ate. Samira, yes, that'll still be the case. All right. I can't remember why I scrolled up. So let's just do this question. We have a right angle triangle. And we have the hypotenuse is 6 centimeters and one side is 2 centimeters longer than the other. So again, you can call this X and you can call this Y. And when they say one side length is 2 centimeters longer than the other, you're actually just making another equation. I'm basically saying Y is going to be X plus 2. Or you could say it the other way around. You could say X is equal to Y plus 2 because they don't really specify which one. So this is another case where you can kind of have different solutions depending on how you do it. Find the length of each side to the nearest 1/10 of a centimeter. I guess this is your biggest clue that you would not be able to factor this and you would have to use the quadratic formula, because if it's 1/10 of a centimeter, it means it's a decimal place. And so definitely you're not going to be able to factor it. And like I said multiple times, I'm not going to give you something where you have to use a quadratic formula. I would just give you everything that is really nice and easily factorable. Okay, so it's going to be x squared plus x plus 2 squared is equal to 6 squared. Simplify, simplify, simplify. And you should end up getting 2x squared plus 4x minus 32 is equal to 0. You can factor out the 2. It looks like a great question. It looks like a very easy question, but when you try to factor it, you would not be able to. So you would have to use the quadratic formula for this one. And then the solutions would be 3.12 and 5.12. All right, last question is question number 4. And question number 4 has the word altitude. So what does that mean? It just means that they're not talking about like a right angle triangle as we're used to seeing it. Altitude means that they're talking about the height of this triangle. So it says the altitude of a triangle is 2 meters longer than its base. What are the dimensions of the altitude and the base if the area of the triangle is 40 meters squared? Okay, so lots of new words here. First of all, we know the altitude is 2 meters longer than its base. So let's say I call this base X, or you could call it B. That means this, what the heck does that mean? Okay, that means, I keep pressing the button on this thing. This is going to be, you guys, what is happening here? Stop it. This is going to be X plus 2. Why is it delete? Why is it erasing everything? This is going to be X plus 2, right? Because the altitude is 2 meters longer than the base. Now they give you the area. We haven't really talked about the area, but hopefully you guys remember from when you were younger, the area of a triangle is just the base times the height divided by 2. You would write your let statement. In this case, I've let X represent the base. If you wanted, actually, what you could do, just in case you want to be very accurate, let's just call this base and let's call this height. And the height is just going to be the base plus 2. I think that would probably be the best way to write it. Now, when we're putting all of our stuff in, our area is 40, our base is B, and our height is B plus 2, all divided by 2. To solve this, I need to move the 2 over to the other side. So I'm basically just moving this over here and multiplying. This is going to be 80 is equal to B squared plus 2B. I'll move the 80 to the other side. It's going to be B squared plus 2B minus 80. And this should be very easy to solve. It would just be 8 and 10. So if I move this up here, 0 is going to be equal to B and B. I mean, of course, it might not be easy, like you might not be able to see it right away. So I don't want to take away from like your struggles, but just play around with it and see if, if you can use your calculator and find 2 numbers that differ by 2 and multiply to give you 80. And I always think of the easiest multiple I possibly can. So B is equal to 8 or B is equal to negative 10. Obviously, this is not going to work. To calculate the height, I just put it back into this equation, which would just be B plus 10. So it'll be 10. And then you would do a check to see if you put in, and I can just do a quick logical check, right? If base is 8 and H is 10, I can put those numbers into here. 8 times 10 is 80. 80 divided by 2 is 40. And that's what the area of the triangle ends up being. So you would just show me that check, then you would write your therefore statement, and then that would be that. So yeah, this is a question where we haven't seen it before because it has altitude base. But honestly, this would be a really good thinking question if I hadn't shown it to you before and you still use the exact same principles as before to solve it. Before I answer your questions, I'm going to stop the recording. There are a bunch of textbook questions for you to try. So like today, after you're done today's homework on the weekend, if you're like, oh, I want a little bit more practice, please use your textbook, go through these. And then on Monday, when we come back, I can definitely take up as many questions as you guys want.